WCEG Talk Radio.com. Click livestream tab or watch us on your smart TV. YouTube, WCEG Network. I'm Dr. Wanzo, host of Mind Matters for the next hour. We're part of the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Last but not least, the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. Again, this is Mind Matters, where we discuss relevant mental health issues. And I'm your host, Dr. Wanzo, a psychiatrist in practice in the Atlanta area for over 29 years. Our co-host, our regular co-host, is Norman Carter Jr. Norm is a retired Philadelphia police corporal, and he's written a very informative book, The Long Blue Walk, My Journey as a Philly Cop. It's available on Amazon. I highly encourage that you buy this. He also hosts his own show on WCEG Network on Mondays, Issues and Answers. Hi, Norm.
Hi, how are you, doctor? How are you?
Okay. I want to start with the opening quote. It's by Neely Fuller, who was a mentor to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. I'm going to read that again. If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Our topic this evening is racism, monarchy, and mental health. Again, racism, monarchy, and mental health. Unless you've been living under a rock, you're aware of the riveting bombshell interview of Duchess Meghan and Prince Harry by Oprah on Sunday evening that drew over 17 million viewers. Over the course of the 2-hour interview, the couple painted a picture of abuse, racism, and neglect that forced them into silence and forced them into having no option but to flee the clutches of the monarchy. Meghan said she was so isolated and lonely while working as a royal that she contemplated suicide. She told Oprah that she just didn't want to be alive anymore. Harry admitted that his relationships with his father, who's heir to the throne, Prince Charles, and his brother, Prince William, have been under severe strain in recent years, even to the point of them not speaking by phone or his father not taking his calls. Harry suggested that the institution may have planted stories in the media that cast him and Meghan in a negative light. Harry, whose mother was killed when he was a boy, was terrified by his wife's admission. Meghan also relayed how a family member had asked about Archie's skin color and What would that mean or look like? She said that those discussions were relayed to her from Harry. Harry declined to name the family member, but said it was not his grandmother and not his grandfather, which leads me to speculate that it was Charles. I was not at all surprised at the racial revelations, given that the British monarchy has been the bastion of white supremacy for over 1,200 years, oppressing and colonizing people of color throughout the world, stealing natural resources, and enslaving people. In fact, the monarchy's wealth is based on this. I did some research and found out that the British monarchy is worth $88 billion. The Queen herself has 500 million in assets, including art, diamonds. You know, they were stolen from all over the world, the natural resources. And they have so much art in the British Museum from all over the world. Well, that was a little side. Meghan admitted she made the mistake of trusting them. Meghan identifies or has identified as a biracial woman and somehow thought she would be accepted by the monarchy. She was seen as an outsider because she was an American, she was an actress, she was a divorcee, and her race. She experienced microaggressions from the British tabloids, the monarchy, and family members. In fact, in the tabloids, they called her a monkey and they called her son a chimp. No matter what your opinions are personally of Meghan, she was experiencing mental health issues. She sought help and was refused. What I want to say is that anytime anyone expresses suicidal thoughts, we must take them seriously. Let me repeat that. Anytime anyone expresses suicidal thoughts, we must take them seriously. Her mistreatment parallels what Diana experienced. Diana also suffered from mental health issues. She experienced the eating disorder bulimia. She had postpartum depression, and she had suicidal thoughts and actions. She had cut herself, and at one point, she threw herself down a flight of 15 stairs. Prince Charles was reluctant to seek treatment for her. In fact, it was a year later after she threw herself down the stairs that he sought treatment for her. And he even asked the psychiatrist and expressed his concerns that her mental health issues would taint the bloodline. So that's why I believe it was Charles that had the response to the color, the speculation about the color of Archie's skin. In spite of Meghan identifying as biracial, she was forced to come face to face with the racism of white supremacy. So, any reactions, Norm?
I think you said it all, Doctor. I can just put cream on top of your shortcake. It's a very sad event. I do agree with you that anytime someone indicates that they have considered suicide, that's an issue. And not only that, what I'm concerned about is even at this moment, she needs to be under some sort of psychiatric care, because the fact that that thought entered her mind
Exactly.
We don't know whether it's gone or not. And based on what happened to Princess Diana, it's easy to see that being in that position, married into the monarchy, is a stressful position where you are under the microscope 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And not many of us could hold up under that type of scrutiny.
You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, she knew what she was getting herself into, but I don't think, you know, you really know until you're in that situation. I mean, they took her car keys, her passport, wouldn't allow her to have lunch with her friends. So I don't think you can say she knew what she was getting into from that aspect.
Well, there could be some things, some subtle things when meeting one's family. The way people will drop their eyes instead of looking you in the eyes. And when they look you in the eyes, there's that you can see the contempt. I can't believe that there wasn't some evidence of this before she was married. In fact, there was an incident with Princess Michael in 2017 before she was married, where there was an event and she came to the event with what is considered a racist brooch.
Oh, yes.
And there was controversy about the brooch being racist long before Meghan came to Britain. So it wasn't as if this was something that wasn't known. So I think that was purposeful, that type of thing. And
so you're saying you think what was purposeful?
That the Princess Michael with her wearing that brooch, I think that was purposeful. And, you know, Meghan was upset about it, but no one in the rest of the family seemed to be upset about it or voiced outraged about it. And I had said some time ago that the monarchy is the personification of the British Empire.
Yes.
Which, as you said, has a long-standing reputation of being racist.
Yes.
And looking on minorities as less than human, as dehumanizing. In fact, not just African Americans or Latin Americans, but also heavily discriminated against Jews.
Yes.
Heavily discriminated against them, even up until recently.
Posting. Yeah, I saw your
yes.
posting. Yeah.
And so they have a lot of problems internally as a country, as a ruling country. And again, the monarchy represents Great Britain. And I've listened to some of the news coverage from Britain. I don't know what Piers.
Oh my God, that's a-hole.
Yeah. And you know, he's exemplifies what a lot of the tabloids have been saying. And you know, the one thing I have an old saying I made up years ago that people
white male fragility.
Right. And I've often said that people underwater don't feel wet. And the same thing with racists. When you're into that, you think it's normal. The way you feel is normal. When it's actually the evidence of a diseased mind, racism. And
I guess that could be debatable, but I mean,
well, they would debate it.
But I mean, whether it's a disease, I mean, it's white supremacy, and it's an institutional, worldwide institution.
Yes.
I mean, wherever they went, I mean, look how they colonized India and South Africa. I mean, the Caribbean. I mean, all over the world, everywhere they went.
Yeah, and if you look at history, they fought Spain and Portugal just to steal their slaves off the ship as they were transporting slaves across the ocean. They would hijack the Portuguese and Spanish boats to take the slaves.
Wow.
So it's
yeah, just think $88 billion they're worth, and the UK taxpayers, they spend the equivalent of 100 million a year to support them. I'm not even, for me, like, clear what the purpose of the monarchy is. I mean, I don't really think that it serves a purpose in this day and time. I think it should be abolished, personally.
I've said that for years.
Okay.
I've said that for years.
Mhm.
It just makes no sense. They're paying for a symbol that's antiquated and
Mhm.
irrelevant to what's going on in the modern world.
$100 million a year is what the UK taxpayers paid to support the monarchy.
I
Yeah.
wish they would support my family here.
The queen, like I said, she has all these jewels, diamonds, and you know where the diamonds came from.
Stolen.
Diamonds and art and things. I mean, she herself has 500 million in assets in terms of jewelry and art.
Yeah. Like, where did the Hope Diamond come from?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. When I think about it, I mean, it just makes me angry about how they, stole all the resources out of Africa and underdeveloped Africa. I mean, I know Africa has its problems and, bribery and things like that, but just the wealth that was stolen from Africa in terms of all the natural resources and all the people,
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, remember the British Empire said the sun would never set in the British Empire?
Correct. Yes. Yes, because that at one point, well, in history, the British Empire was the largest empire there ever was.
Mm.
And that began to change after World War One. And after World War II, that really diminished.
Mm.
But yeah, but Africa and India are great examples. And once they pillaged and just destroyed whatever society and government that those people had, and they got all that they could get out of them, they says, okay, we're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And they left all these countries that they had dominated in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going back 40, 50, 60 years that these African countries have been in chaos ever since.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I looked up how many nations are in the Commonwealth. There are 54 countries in the Commonwealth. That's all throughout the Caribbean, Africa. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yes.
54 countries in the Commonwealth. And I also looked in 1884 when they did the Berlin Conference. It's when they split up Africa, and England got the majority of the countries.
Yeah, we have to remember that Palestine was a British colony.
Oh, really? Okay.
Until 1948.
Okay.
And then they couldn't find any place else. Nobody wanted the Jews that were escaping from Germany. So they petitioned Palestine and made that the new home of the Jews. And they transported the Jews to Palestine, who changed the name to Israel. But the people who were there resented the fact that they felt like they were dumped on. And that's why you still have this conflict today. But it all emanates from Great Britain.
Mm-hmm. And then like Egypt and the Suez Canal. I mean,
exactly.
Nasser rebelled and took over. I mean,
yes.
like they were everywhere. And how can you, like I said, I just don't understand how people support them and how they still exist. But I hear the British, what did it say? God save the Queen, and they love the Queen and all of that. I just don't understand how they.
What does the Queen do? What does the Queen do? The one thing that I because of this program, I looked up a few things about the impact of racism on people who are the victims of racism, and it's not a very simple thing to look at or even to resolve, because one of the things I was surprised to read is that a lot of this that it's generational becomes, what's the word? Not eugenics.
Or epigenetics.
Yes. Thank
Epigenetics.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And that means that things are ingrained in your genes.
Right. The trauma is passed down through generations.
Yes.
They studied that first in the Holocaust survivors and found that to be the case. So we know that it applies to, to other populations, but they first studied in Holocaust survivors.
Yeah. It's and going back to Megan, I think one of her problems, I think she had a little bit of a reality problem. I'm not victim blaming, but once she considered herself biracial.
Biracial, right.
Well, the world considers you black.
You may want to,
exactly. And that's a self-delusion.
Exactly.
And I think that her not being clear about that, having been able to go to pass in Hollywood for years and to be accepted, and then to go into another environment where people do research on your background that they don't do so much here in the United States. And they go, oh, goodness, your mother was Black and your father's a drunk, you know. So,
Exactly.
and all of these things come out. And so now she has been publicly undressed.
Exactly.
Publicly undressed. And her race has been put on, I won't say display, but that's the banner that they're waving.
Exactly.
Is her race and her Blackness and the Blackness of her child.
Exactly. Someone made the comment in one of the, I'm on Clubhouse. That's like this new chat platform that people talking. And I thought the other night someone, because this has been the topic of discussion, people go 7, 8, 9 hours discussing this. I mean, I haven't been on that long, but one comment that I thought that someone made was colorism got Megan in the door and racism got her kicked out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So, very accurately said. I think though the good thing, if there's a good thing about this, which really isn't, is not so much that feeling sorry for Megan and the predicament that she's in, but the fact that now this has again brought up, not only just on a national but an international basis, racism. And this is something that's being confronted worldwide and especially here in the United States. And the racists are being exposed. I mean, I guess the one good thing about Donald Trump is he made them feel unashamed of themselves.
Exactly.
And at this very moment, they are unashamed of themselves in doing things like blatantly championing voter suppression. I mean, they're not even trying to hide it. They're not even trying to hide it. And sadly, I don't think enough of us are looking at that.
And we know that racism has effects on our mental health. I mean, that's where we get the microaggressions that one experiences on a daily basis, and those add up to like stress, high blood pressure, because this is something we experience on a daily basis. That's why they call them microaggressions. They may not seem major, but they build up, and it's the slights, the whatever, discrimination and things that we as Black people experience on a daily basis.
And I think that a lot of things, I was reading today, that it affects your sleep patterns.
Yes.
And we are, as a group, we don't get the amount of sleep that most other people get. And a lot of that is because of these built up microaggressions that you speak of. And they also evidence themselves in and maybe in some of our younger people or even older people, in bad behavior, because that comes out. It reinforces that self-hatred.
Exactly, the self-hatred.
Yeah, because you're looking at yourself as less than.
Exactly.
And never able to rise, no matter what you do, above a certain circumstance. And that's frustrated, and we see that a lot in our young people. And when people feel as if, well, I can't go this way, maybe I need to go that way. And I just did a program yesterday with ex-convicts, and surely that has a lot to do with their impression of themselves as young people, and as they grow up and move through the world.
Exactly. And the names that we call ourselves. I used to work, in several jail settings, and I remember like one of the inmates, I introduced myself as Dr. whatever, and he said, "Hey, bitch." That's what he called me. Hey, bitch. That's what he called me. Yeah. I mean, just no respect for himself or myself, to call me that. Yeah.
I wrote a paper many years ago about the N word and the B word.
Exactly.
And one of the things that I said is that these are dehumanizing words. And of course, we have people who say, well, I use it as a term of endearment.
Right.
No, you're using it as a term to compare me with a dog. or the
Exactly.
parent with something that's not human.
Exactly.
And the evidence of that is the way that we treat each other, not just, and the way that we talk to one another.
Exactly.
So that's this whole racism thing. It just filters down, and when it gets down to our level, it's really, really bad. And I can imagine that that Megan, the Duchess, is, I think she's feeling the impact of it. I think her husband is feeling the impact of it, and it's adversely affecting his relationship with his father, which I don't think was great anyway.
Right.
But and his brother, with whom he had been very close at one time.
Right. He went through a lot of trauma too. The fact that his mother died and just seeing him follow behind the procession when she was dead. So he, experienced some trauma himself. But yeah, so Diana had postpartum depression, and Megan was pregnant when this happened. So that, when you're pregnant, your hormones do play a role in your depression. And she's pregnant now. So that is something just to be aware of, because you can have, the issues while you're pregnant up to 18 months after you deliver. So that's something that they're going to have to, just monitor to make sure she's not experiencing, any symptoms of depression, postpartum, peripartum, throughout the pregnancy.
And let's not, it's probably too early in the game to disregard Munchausen Syndrome, which a lot of people don't know about.
Now, and then how do you tie this to Munchausen? In what sense are you tying it to?
Well, isn't that where people, when they're trying to get attention, they do it
they do things to themselves to feign medical illness. Like they'll present with medical illness, but it's something that they've created to get attention. That's what Munchausen. They'll create medical conditions to get attention. Yeah.
We're not past that. We're not past that.
Oh,
that's my own layman opinion.
So you think she's faking or something?
Oh, no. What I'm saying is that she's not having had any medical supervision at this point. We don't know which way she might go at this point, because she's not seeking any medical intervention at this time, at least as far as we know.
As far as we know, right. But I thought it was interesting that one of the projects that they're going to be working with Oprah on, and Oprah mentioned in the interview, was some kind of series of mental health issues. So I thought that was a positive thing that they mentioned. So, because they've got several contracts to do things. So I don't know if they've got Netflix, Spotify, Apple, but one of the projects they're going to be working with Oprah to produce a series on mental health.
Okay.
And she mentioned that Sunday.
Well, I know that they had a deal with Netflix. This is prior to the program, to do a series of programs. I don't know what that program was about, but I know they had signed a contract with Netflix. So that's probably what it was about.
But they've got contracts with Netflix, Spotify, and Apple TV. That's what I read today. They got.
Oh my goodness.
Let me see. In fact, I found out what they were worth. Let's see. They signed a 3-year podcast deal with Spotify, and that's worth 15 to 18 million. They signed a $100 million 5-year Netflix deal.
Oh my goodness.
And then they signed an Apple TV deal. Now that sum is undisclosed, but they've got 3 deals that they've signed, so they're not going to be, worried about money. Although he admitted in the interview here, he said that they were living off the inheritance from his mother, Diana. And I looked that up. He received 10 million from her. So that's what they're living off, for $10 million. So
gosh.
So they don't have to worry.
Poverty wages.
But my concern is from the mental health aspect, the fact that she was suicidal and had some kind of underlying depression, and could be related to the pregnancy, and it's something they're gonna have to take a look, because she's pregnant now. And also remember, she had a miscarriage too, so
yes,
sure she had a lot of emotional issues about her miscarriage. So it's just something that I want people to take seriously. I'm gonna give out the suicide helpline numbers. So if anyone reports that they're feeling suicidal, some people say, oh, they're just playing, they're not, they're just putting it on. If they want to do it, they would do it. But again, as I stated, if anyone is expressing any suicidal thoughts, you must take them seriously. You can't ignore it. So the suicide helpline is 1-800-273-TALK. Again, 1-800-273-TALK. That's the number you can call. They even have a number that you can text, the crisis text line, and you text TALK, TALK, to 741-741. Again, the crisis text line, you text TALK, TALK, to 741-741. So I know some people, have the opinion, oh, she's privileged and I don't want to hear, the whinings from a privileged entitled case, whatever else you think about her personally. She was experiencing mental health issues. And that's my point. You have to take mental health issues seriously at all times. When I see a patient, no matter what their position is or whatever, I can't go and judge them. Oh, they're, wealthy, they shouldn't be depressed, whatever. Wealth has nothing to do with depression. Wealth has nothing to do with depression. You can be very wealthy and depressed. So depression actually is based on, depression is a medical illness. When I talk about depression, I mean clinical depression. It's a medical illness like diabetes or hypertension. It's something that tends to run in families. So there's an underlying genetic variable, and then stress can bring it out. But it does require treatment with medication as well as talk therapy. So major depression is a medical illness and should be treated. And women are much more sensitive during the time when they're pregnant or after pregnancy. So that's something to be alert. Now, a lot of women have the baby blues. I mean, that's kind of normal. But if it goes on for like several weeks at a time, and you have disturbances in like 5 or 6 areas, such as sleep disturbance, appetite, loss of energy, crying spells, lack of motivation, and suicidal ideation, then at that point, and if it goes on for several weeks, then at that point is when you need to seek help. In the postpartum period, women can also have postpartum psychosis, where they can experience voices, paranoid thoughts. They can have all kinds of delusional thoughts about the babies. And that results in something called infanticide. I don't know what the statistics are off the top of my head, but women have been known to kill their babies during this time period. I knew someone, personally, who killed their child as a result of the postpartum psychosis. So these are things that are very serious, and we have to take them seriously. So it's important, when someone is reporting mental health issues, that we take it seriously and we don't neglect it. So that's the main point that I want to bring home today.
Yeah, I personally, my first death as a police officer was a woman who, on a Sunday afternoon, she slashed her wrist, and she was taken to a hospital in the Germantown section of Philadelphia. And the doctor made a statement in earshot of her to a police officer and said, she's just trying to get attention.
Wow.
And that was on a Sunday. And on Wednesday, we had a call to go to her apartment, and she was dead. She overdosed on drugs. I had a similar situation in the Army where a gentleman took a pair of scissors and cut his wrist.
Wow.
And the doctor said, this is the military. The doctor said, next time use a razor. And that's what happened to that. He went home and after discharge, and he slashed his wrist with a razor. So any time I've had to had experiences where I had to just a few years ago had to not a coworker, but one of my subordinates was suicidal on the phone, had a gun to his head, and it was very unsettling. I wound up talking to him for 2 hours, and the situation was such that I couldn't get anyone else on the phone. I was in the office by myself. And at some point we had a break, and I was able to call the police. And when they got to his house, his apartment, he was lying in the bed with the gun to his head when they walked in the door.
He was alive.
He was alive.
Oh, good.
But he was only seconds away from killing himself.
Okay.
So to anyone, I mean, that's something that I take very, very seriously. And when you add to that the other factor of people living under the burden of racism, and sometimes not feeling they have a way out, and that adds to the frustration. I was reading something, if I might.
Sure.
This came from Psychology Today, October 7th, 2020. The hold racism has on mental health begins early in life. For kids and adolescents, experiencing racism comes with more depressive symptoms, lower self-esteem, and more displays of, quote, bad behavior. Even when kids don't directly experience racism, their parents experience discrimination, and it makes the kids more likely to have anxiety and depression. And one of the things that they said that the article goes on to say is that a kid who is quiet, a Black kid who is quiet in class, is looked upon as being attention deficit or something, when maybe this kid is just taking it all in. And there are other things that are looked at by the school system and the system in a whole in a negative manner, and they really aren't. The kids are normal, but they're categorized as something that they're not, and that starts. Yeah, they're labeled young.
Let me tell you, when my son, we lived in Greensboro, North Carolina, and he attended a private school. There were only 4 Black males in the school. All 4 had been given some kind of label. So I took my son to a psychologist, had him tested, and the label that they had didn't fit. But it's just every Black male in the school had a label.
Yeah, it's sad. I have a personal experience with my stepson, who was diagnosed in school as being attention deficit, and he was having problems, and they recommended all kinds of medication that he take and different things, and he needed to be in a special school, and we needed to make special accommodations for him, and I just never accepted that.
Now, how did they make that determination? Who evaluated him?
That was these were people within the school system themselves.
People of the
Your nursing, yes, exactly. Yes. And I didn't buy into it. And where they said that we should slacken up on him, I said, no, we're not. We're going to treat him like any other student. And this young man, he went through school, he did well, all the way through high school, graduated on time. And I always, when we talk, I kid with him about the fact that he had to go to school on the yellow bus.
And the short bus.
Yes. And the kids would laugh at him because he was going to school on that bus. I says, but look where you are today. And he's doing very well. And look where they are. So, I think that we have to be very, very careful about labels that the system puts on our children at a very young age.
Another example, my ex-husband, my son's father, who we met and married in medical school, he told me he grew up, in Milwaukee, and he was a young Black kid in a white school, and they had labeled him as mentally retarded. And for a while, he believed it. But do you know, he went on to graduate from college with a 4-point average, pre-med, went on to medical school and was the top of his class, even though they had labeled him as being mentally retarded.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It happens at a young age.
At a young age. That's why we need more culturally sensitive psychologists, child psychiatrists, we need more. There's a shortage. I mean, only something like less than, I know it's maybe 5% of all physicians and 2% of psychiatrists are African-American. There's a real shortage,
Well, I think if the powers that be would put out the financial support that people need to go through that type of thing and start, that's something that you would start gearing kids towards at a very young age, and not discourage them. Exactly. I can go back to my junior high school, and we had counselors, and the counselor would tell you, you know what, you're not academic material. You need to go to vocational school. What? What? And that type of thing went on, and I'm sure it still goes on.
Well, I call them, instead of guidance, I call them misguidance counselors. I remember when I was in junior high, I had this white counselor. So where we lived in, Milwaukee was very segregated. So the school in my neighborhood, if I had attended that high school in my neighborhood, they offered no foreign language. The highest math course they offered was algebra. I mean, they offered none of the courses that I would have needed in order to go to pre-med. So I wanted to transfer to this other school on the other side of town. And the counselor said, why would you want to do that? You have to get up early in the morning and take 2 buses to go there. I said, but I want to do it. She was discouraging me from doing it, but my parents didn't. I ended up going to the school on the other side of town and got the kind of, the courses and prerequisites that I needed. If I gone to my neighborhood school, I would not have been able to, to go to college, because they didn't offer offer no foreign. Remember high school with no foreign language at all? No, they offered no foreign language, and the highest math course was algebra. But I'm glad that I had to get up early and take 2 buses and go to the other side of town to my school, which is now, in fact, it's called a university prep school. It's labeled a university prep school. Yeah.
You remind me of during my career as a police officer. I had a lieutenant. My lieutenant came to me one day, and we had some incident we were talking about. And he came to me and he said, I feel sorry for those poor little kids in the housing projects. He says, they'll never grow up to be anything. And I went, what are you talking about? Of course, he was white.
Yes.
But he came to me with this, and I said, where do you think I came from? How dare you sit there and just because of someone's living circumstance, you're going to put them down, not just for now, but for life.
And that has to do with a lot of the expectations of the teachers. If they don't expect, anything from the child is not going to achieve. So it has a lot to do with the expectations of the teacher.
Yeah, and I think that putting down and that diminishing of life goals begins very, very young, and it's perpetuated. I was fortunate that I went to an inner city school, but our teachers really, really pounded into us about success, achievement, and success, and we heard that all the way through elementary school. So by the time that I'm in high school, it's already ingrained in me. So yeah, but this is how one of the ways that we combat racism. I think one of the worst things that happened to us as a race was in the late 60s. A lot of Caucasians found out that you could avoid the draft by becoming a school teacher, because school teachers were in demand. Oh. And so what they did, there was no place to put them but in the inner city schools. And this is when the term Ebonics came into play. And they were promoting Ebonics in school, which was really their way of saying, we're not going to try to teach these children how to speak properly. We're just going to let them talk whatever way they talk in their neighborhoods, and we'll just have to accept that.
Now, this is the administration that was promoting that.
These were the new breed of teachers that were coming in the 60s. They were all white. Yes. And so what they did was de-emphasize English and writing skills And this made these children ill prepared to enter the workplace.
Wow.
And that's something that has, just like here in Atlanta with the school cheating scandals that went on. Those, how do those children, that happened for years and years. So how do these children catch up?
Wow.
Because most of them are out in the workplace now.
Wow.
So I know we've gone from racism to education, but
but the whole thing is white supremacy is a part of every institution in this country, educational, political, legal, economic. It is so ingrained in the fabric of the United States that it permeates everything that we do. And until we do something about it, you know, it's not going to change. Now, I don't know what we do about it, but until something is done about racism, it's worldwide, it's global.
But I think people are awake now, absolutely awake. And I think that there's an activism that's going on in this country. And I think part of the greatest example I can see of that is the voting participation in the last election, where the election was turned because minorities and masses voted this year, and it really upset the system. And so now we as a people realize the muscle that we have, and we can change politics. We can change the educational system. We can change the policing system. We can change the judicial system. All we have to do is stand up and refuse to accept the status quo.
You see that they removed 6 Dr. Seuss books? Did you see that?
Yeah. They're bigger fish to fry.
But the fact that they did that, the people have loved Dr. Seuss for years, and the fact now they removed 6 of his books because they had like racial stereotypes and things, you know, of that nature in them. I mean, I think I didn't see any of the pictures. Actually, I did, where they portrayed, you know, the typical racist view of Black people, black face and big lips and things like that in one of the pictures, and then just overtly racist photos, you know, that he had been portrayed in some of his books.
And I wonder what the commitment to that is, because I remember them taking Amos and Andy off of television, but then rejoiced with Good Times and Jimmy Walker's character, which was again a racist stereotype that became extremely popular.
Exactly.
So
and they took Aunt Jemima off the pancake box and Uncle Ben off the rice.
Right. Exactly. You know, I mean, we're making progress, but we're not there yet.
Exactly.
But the fact of the matter is that I hope that this muscle flexing that we've done in December is just the beginning. And when we have people like Stacey Abrams, who's turning to be the conscience of America, to keep poking that bear, then things will change. Things will change.
But then there are things that we need to do for ourselves, like the demoralization, dehumanization, and how the names we call ourselves and all of that. I mean, people are still doing that, like you said, affectionately using the N-word. That needs to stop. I mean, one of the things that Francis Cress Welsing said is there's no other ethnic group on earth that does the type of name calling that we call ourselves, and no other ethnic group does that, puts themselves down like that and calls each other such negative names.
You take on the persona of the slave master.
Exactly.
And you use the terms that the slave master used to dehumanize you, and we embrace them. And I think about that every time I see these college athletes with brand marks on their arms. That's what slave masters did to people.
That's true.
But we have college educated fraternity brothers who think that it's a good thing to revert back to a symbol of slavery and subjugation by putting a brand on their body.
You have a very valid point there. I can't argue with you there at all.
Wow. Oh, well. All the frat boys now are going to be after me.
So I take it you never pledged a fraternity?
Yes.
You never did? Oh.
No.
Oh, speaking of Megan, she's an alumni of the same university that I attended, Northwestern. She graduated in 2003, which was years after me, but we have like alumni websites and stuff, and people reported recollections, and it's been said, by some of the people that when she was there, that, okay, there was a Black house on campus, which was started when I was there. We were real active, and when I was there, I had my big afro and all of that. That there was a Black house on campus, which she never visited. She didn't really identify with Black. We had, the Black sororities, which I'm a member of myself, which she didn't join. She ended up joining a sorority called Kappa Kappa Gamma, which is an all-white sorority. So she joined an all-white sorority while she was there.
We go back to that that biracial delusion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they say the one drop rule. Drop,
absolutely. Well, and the one thing that I will say is that even though people like Meghan Markle, Tiger Woods will openly deny their Blackness, we as a race, we do embrace them because we know who they are.
Exactly.
And and at some point they come back to us. Exactly.
And this is your Megan's awakening.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to read this poem that I posted on my page. That someone, a poet named Leslie Honoré wrote. She said, I'm gonna read the whole poem. She said, no matter how gentle the Black, how light the skin, how gorgeous the face, how talented the soul, how pure the intentions, they will not protect us. No matter how innocent the life, how secure the birthright, titles will be stripped, babies tossed to wolves because of fear of Black skin. They will let a woman down in their lives. They will let the darkness swallow her, see her reach out for help, and not only turn their backs, but crush her fingers beneath their feet. With hopes, she will plummet off the cliff. The why is obvious. The why is consistent. The why is always the same. Black. They want her suffering because Blackness, because she was breathing while Black, because her light outshines the white with her Blackness. They will turn their backs on their own, stop taking calls from their sons because of Blackness. And what else should we expect from the birthplace of white supremacy, the birthplace of slavery, the birthplace of patriarchy, the soul of colonialism? And what else should we expect from a line of resilience, of beauty, strength, of everlasting hope, her bounce back, her reboot, her survival? Catch this Black girl magic, catch this brilliance, catch this happy, catch this radiance that not even 1,200 years of hate can kill. Catch this liberation, catch this revolution, this world woman, this global majority. Catch all this unbreakable Blackness. She doesn't need your titles. She's always been a queen. So
I tell you, it reminds me of Nikki Giovanni and some of her poetry back in the day.
Yes. Right.
For you young folks, check it out.
So again, I'm gonna give the suicide hotline numbers. Anytime anybody makes any expression of wanting to die or being suicidal, please take them seriously. You may think they're playing your games, but you have to take them seriously. So the suicide helpline again is 1-800-273-TALK, T-A-L-K. Again, 1-800-273-TALK, T-A-L-K. And the crisis text line is, you can text TALK, T-A-L-K, to 741-741. So wow. So yes, and now she realizes that she's a Black woman. Her mother's Black. I mean, she's her mother's Black.
Yeah. Is this Pinky?
Oh yes. I remember seeing that movie. When I was, 4 or 5, to the movie theater to see it. So y'all never forget that. Yeah.
I think she needs to watch it. Imitation of Life. Yep.
Imitation of Life. Yeah.
Same thing. It's amazing. life imitating art.
Exactly. It was interesting how Tyler Perry came to the rescue, or rescue Megan. Let him stay in his mansion and came to their rescue.
As I said earlier,
Mm-hmm.
they come back to us. They come back to us, and we embrace them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another thing I've read years ago in a book, and it said that the Negro, as we were called then,
Mm-hmm.
are the most resilient race on the planet.
Yeah.
And no race has gone through what we've gone through.
Absolutely.
And have had our bounce back ability.
Exactly.
And we're also the most forgiving race.
Yes, that's true. It's true. So we know that the slaves that were on the ships, the ones that survived were the strongest. So we are the strongest.
Exactly. We're from good stock.
Yes, exactly. Genetically, we're very strong.
Yep.
We're the one. We're the descendants of those that survived.
It means a lot. Mm-hmm. It means a lot.
So I'm glad that we had this discussion, because I think, the show was going to be about something else, but after this came up, I just changed the topic to this because I felt it was something, that we needed to talk about, mental health issues, racism, because racism is something that's very alive and well in this country. I mean, that was the basis of the storming of the Capitol, was white supremacy, so.
Yeah. I had a statement that I could read real fast.
Go ahead.
It says, racism, even so-called positive stereotypes, are ultimately dehumanizing. These beliefs effectively tell people that their autonomy is somehow less than that of peers with different skin colors, and the results of those assumptions can be damaging on any number of different levels. Racism has a detrimental effect on multiple areas of mental health, and those mental health issues can further manifest themselves in physical ailments. And this came from Gateway to Mental Health Services, rtor.org.
Thank you. I want everyone to know that getting help, if you're suffering any kind of mental health, emotional issues, it's a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. Unfortunately, in our community, seeking mental health services has been so stigmatized that people don't want to go, but it is something that we do need, like I said, check up from the head up. We do need to invest in mental health services, because it can be life-threatening. People can die from severe depression. So I want to thank our listening audience. This has been a wonderful show, and I want to thank you, Norm, for
Thank you for inviting me.
And want everyone to have a wonderful, blessed rest of the week. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.